Welcome to Excel Magic Trick number 1433. Hey, if you want to download this Excel workbook file, either the start file or finish file so you can follow along, click on the link below the video. Hey, we got to talk about materializing tables in DAX, either using existing connections over in an Excel sheet, DAX Studio, which is a download, or Power BI desktop. Now, I've been doing a lot of videos about DAX lately, all the way back to 2014. And being able to materialize tables or see tables inside of DAX formulas is really helpful for understanding how a formula works. Now, the reason that this is so helpful is unlike Excel, there is no F9 or evaluation key over in DAX. Usually in Excel, we can use the evaluation key to help us see what's going on in a formula. So for example, in Excel, I have no problem. I can highlight this entire column equal and type GG. I can hit the F9 key to, in essence, materialize how that formula is working internally. Similarly, I might say, hey, give me the row of all of these, close parentheses F9, and I can see that it delivers an array of items 20 to 28. So how do we do that over in DAX? Well, we have three ways. We're going to see all three. Now, I already have a small data set here. Here's our F sales table, our product table. These two are related, and this is a disconnected table, which we'll use these two tables in our last example. Now, if we go over to Power Pivot, Manage Data Model, over here in Diagram View, I've already imported these tables. Here's the F sales, and there's a one-to-many relationship based on the product column, and this is the disconnected table. Now, here's the thing. Over in Excel, if you have tables inside the data model, we can actually access them over in an Excel spreadsheet using existing connections. And then we can build DAX formulas using the evaluate command and see what's happening inside a formula. All right, I'm going to Alt-Tab. Now, there are many table functions in DAX. We'll look at these four functions. The all function removes all filters on a table, column, or set of columns. If it's the whole table, it just removes all filters and returns the entire table. All on a column returns a unique list plus an extra blank for each unmatched item in the relationship. You know, that's one of those things you read in a book or see in a video. If you can't visualize that, it's kind of hard to understand what that means. And that's exactly why we need to know how to materialize tables. All with column in it will give you a unique set of records from the columns. ALLEXCEPT, you put a table in a column, and it gives you a unique set of records for the columns in the table without the excluded column. Filter, that allows us to return a table that satisfies a condition. And then CROSSJOIN, you can put two tables together, and it will perform a Cartesian product. In essence, if we multiply these two using CROSSJOIN, it will return this one record, Bellin 30, for each one of these records in the second table. You can see the result over here. Now, let's come over to the side here. I'm going to scroll down, and we'll start with looking at existing connections here in Excel. Now, remember, these tables are in the data model. So if I go to Data, Existing Connections, come back to the Tables tab, these tables are in the data model. If I double-click one table, I actually have access over here in the spreadsheet to the entire data model. Now I'm going to double-click. Here's the import data. I'm going to import it as a table. Existing worksheet, click OK. Now, this is just redundant, but let's notice something amazing. Because we used existing connections, and this is looking at the data model, I can right-click Table. And there's all sorts of options that are not available in a normal Excel table. And there it is, Edit DAX. Now, before we click that, let's come over to this table. This is just an Excel table. Right-click, Table. It's just not there. So the reason that we can right-click table edit DAX is because this is coming from the data model. Now, when we edit DAX, this is where we can write our expression to materialize that table. We first have to select DAX. Then we come here and we have to write the word evaluate. Evaluate, enter, will allow us to write whichever function we're trying to visualize or see from our DAX formula. And then it will materialize in the spreadsheet as a table. Now, all is a common function that we use to remove filters. Oftentimes, we use it either in filter or calculate. If I just say F sales table, close parentheses, when you put a table inside of all, it removes all filters. So it actually returns the whole table. When I click OK, there's no difference. Right click, table, edit DAX. But now, if I put a single column, F sales square bracket, product, close square bracket. By putting a single column, all is instructed to return a unique list. Now, we're on the many side of the relationship here. And because there's one item in the fact table Yanaki that's not over in the dimension or lookup table, because we're using product column here, all will give us a unique list, including Yanaki. Now, that'll be different than what happens if we try to use all on this column here, but we'll see that in just a moment. When I click OK, that is what the table looks like inside your DAX formula when you use all on a particular column. It gives you a unique list. Now, one of the reasons that DAX can be so fast is because sometimes if we reduce it down to a unique list, this parallels the underlying data model where each column is stored as a unique list in the data model. And it can iterate quickly over such a table. Now, right click. Remember, we're doing this just to see what's internally happening. So if we used, instead of just F sales and all, that's a single column. If we put another column, F sales square bracket, customer, close square bracket. Now, because we put two columns, all is programmed to give us a unique list of records from those two columns. So when I click OK, there's our unique record. And you can see here's one Carlota Cunto. But if we look over here, Carlota Cunto, Carlota Cunto. There's two of them in the original table, but all based on two columns returns a unique list of records. Now, this is the result from all on two columns. Previously, we saw all on the product column from the fact table. Now we want to see what happens when we do all on the product table from our lookup or dimension table. And one of the things that's so useful about this is, remember, we initially did an external connection to just the F sales table. But really, this is a connection to the data model. So when I right-click, table, edit DAX, I can highlight all of this. And I can connect to any table down in the data model. So D product, square bracket, product, close square bracket, close parentheses. Now, this is the one side of a many relationship. So when I click OK, look at what happened. It listed 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, but it automatically lists a blank cell for the unmatched item in the relationship. Now, internally, that is so if, for example, we were adding, right? Well, there wouldn't be any Yanaki in this table, so they have some extra category to do whatever calculation is needed there. Now, I didn't intend, but I should just show you how we could materialize a table that actually had a calculation here. I'm going to right-click, table, edit DAX. And I'm going to use that table and add an extra column that has a calculation. Hey, guess what? There's a DAX function called ADDCOLUMNS, open parentheses. Actually, it's a little bit harder using this edit DAX dialog box to create these formulas. Later when we see DAX Studio and then Power BI, they have screen tips and everything. Here we don't have screen tips. We have to type everything correctly. So this is a little bit harder. But let me show you this. We want to add columns. The first argument is the table that you want to add a column to, comma. The second argument is the name of the new column. I'll say total sales in double quotes, comma. And then our measure or whatever calculation we're making. Now, what I would like to do is simply sum from F sales, square bracket sales column. This will not work. As we have seen in a number of videos over the last couple weeks here at excelisfun, an aggregate function that's iterating over a particular table, and add columns is one of the iterative functions that does not have an x. But anytime you have an aggregate function that's iterating over a table, whether in a calculated column or a function, it can't see the row context. So we need to bring the row context into our aggregate formula. And the way you do that is by wrapping it inside the calculate function. Calculate function does context transition, which just is the fancy word that means, hey, it's going to take the existing row context and bring it into our aggregate calculation. Now I'm going to close parenthesis on calculate, close parentheses on add columns. And now we'll get to see why all returns that empty cell. When I click OK, it has to have some place to do its calculation. Now let's see what happens to this blank row. If I come over to the original data source, and I'm going to change this record to another unmatched item. So I'll change it to Aspen and enter. Now I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to use the keyboard Control-Alt-F5 to update everything in this workbook. Now notice we always only get one blank row. This is in essence the catch-all for any unmatched records. I'm going to come over and Control-Z, Control-Z. Those two, Control-Z, both the refresh and the change in that product name. Now, there is a way we can avoid that blank row there. Right-click, Table, Edit DAX. And this is actually add columns I didn't mention at the beginning of the video. And I didn't mention this function either. There's all no blank row function. That will get rid of that blank row. When I click OK, oh, look at that. We could not match the total here with the total from the sales column over here because it's eliminated that row. Now, let me show you another Control-Z trick. We have edited the DAX in here 3 times. So if I Control-Z, Z, Z, look at that, 3 times backwards. If I right-click down to Table, Edit DAX, there's where we started a few examples ago, all on 2 columns to get a unique list of records. Click OK. Again, I know as I have learned DAX, this has been an indispensable tool to help me see what's going on in a formula. Now let's see how to do, we have a few more. We want to see ALLEXCEPT, filter, and CROSSJOIN. Let's see how to do this with something called DAX Studio. Now, DAX Studio is something you can install if you have Excel or as a separate program and then access, for example, Power BI desktop models. But you just go search. It's a free download. When you download it and install it, it will show up on the add-ins. So I'm in Excel. So when I click DAX Studio, it knows that I'm in Excel. So it says, hey, do you want to access the Power Pivot model? Yes, because I have this Excel workbook open. This is the default. And in fact, to see the Excel workbook, you have to have Excel open first. When I click Connect, it will be easier to construct our visualizations over here in DAX. Now, actually, DAX Studio is an amazing tool where you can time formulas and do all sorts of amazing things. But in this video, we want to see how to just use it to materialize tables and see the results. Now, here's our data model. We can expand and see tables and columns. We have to come over here and type evaluate. But notice over here, it's easier than over with existing connections in Excel, I can hit Tab, and there's my evaluate command. Enter. Now I'm going to type AL, and look at that. There's a drop down, so I can down arrow to all except. All except wants a table, so we'll say F sales tab, comma, and the column we want to exclude is product. F sales tab, square bracket, and I'm going to exclude product. Down arrow and tab. Close parentheses. And now to evaluate this or run, I'm going to click Run. And there's my visualization down here. Now, all except means that we did not use all the columns in the table. If we put just a table into all, remember it gives us the whole table removing all filters. But anytime you use all with just a few columns or all except with just a few columns, here we have just one minus column, it's going to do the same as all column. It's going to return a unique list of records from our table. Now notice 1, 2, 3 transactions on the 15th. And that's because when we exclude the product column on the 15 Kunto 200, if we go look in our actual table, 115, 115, but there's two different products. So when we exclude that column, the unique list of records for 15 Kunto 200, it lists it only once in the return table. So here we use DAX Studio to see how all except is working. Now let's try a different function, filter. FI tab. Filter, we can put a table F sales tab, comma, and the condition we want, F sales tab, square bracket, and I'm going to say, please look at the product column equals, in double quotes, quad, in double quotes. So what I'm going to do here is filter this table. I want to see only products that are equal to quad. Close parentheses. And when I click Run, boom, there it is, the 3 records where we sold quads. So again, we're using DAX Studio to visualize a table function we might use in our DAX so we can see exactly what it's returning. Now I'm going to close this and not save. And I'm going to save this because I want to import the data model I have here into Power BI Desktop and see that we have the ability to do this even with more power over in Power BI Desktop. So I'm going to close this. Now, Power BI Desktop is a free download. Also, you just go search Google Power BI Desktop. I'm going to import using this button up here, Import Excel Workbook. There's my Excel Magic Trick 1433 start, so I'm going to double click. This message says it will just extract the useful parts from the data model. I'm going to click Start. I'm going to say Copy the data. It got our 3 tables, and there are 3 queries to those tables. Close. We can come over here to the Relationship button, and there, that relationship was imported just as it was over in our Excel Power Pivot data model. On the tables, I can see I have 1, 2, 3 tables. Now we can go up to Modeling, click New Table. And what's different about this is this table that we create will actually immediately be added as a 4th table in our data model. I'm going to call this CROSSJOIN 2 tables equal, and then CR, I see my CROSSJOIN function tab. I simply have to put 2 tables, 2 or more tables, and it will do Cartesian product. DP to get to our D product, comma, DIS to get to our disconnected color pattern. And remember, we saw in the beginning, if there is a single record in the first table, it will be matched up with every record in the second table. When I hit Enter, there it is. We could see Bellin 30 got matched up with all 4 possibilities from the color and pattern. So Bellin 30, there's another possibility. Bellin 30, another possibility, and our 4th one. We can see it added as an extra table over here. Now, if you wanted to use this just to visualize to see how that part of the formula is working, then we can come over and right-click Delete. If you wanted to keep it, because sometimes like we create calendar tables or other types of tables, then we would keep it. I'm going to right-click Delete. I'm going to close this and not save. Back over here in Excel, I don't know how often I use existing connections, DAX Studio and Power BI Desktop to visualize my table so I can see better what's going on. I wish we had an F9 key, but since we don't, we got to know about these 3 amazing options. All right, we'll see you next video.